All right, we're bringing everybody in early today. I know I haven't been around for a month. Please excuse my absence. And typically we would do an hour here of just me, and then I'd bring in a guest. But in the interest of time, plus all of this is very relevant for everyone. We're not going to section it off in different segments. It's the Gorilla Underground, and I got all my people here with me today that immediately I thought of when this shit popped off. Right, what happened last night in Washington, D.C. with Donald Trump. I just so happened to be, I just came back from somewhere, and I was at a friend's house, and boom, and I saw this happen, and I'm like, oh, here we go again. The interesting part to me about all of this is that everything is a conspiracy theory now. Everything. And when I say everything, I'm generalizing, okay? In general, a lot of people just seem to subscribe to this conspiracy theory aspect of it. And in MAGA world, of course, they always did, but now they're looking at it in a negative light towards Donald Trump. And now the left is also joining in on the conspiracy theory of things. Nobody seems to believe that this was legit, right? That what happened yesterday, the attack on Donald Trump, on the life of Donald Trump was legit. Everybody seems to think that there's some type of problem with it. And it varies, right? As to the degree of bullshit that we've been fed, depending on the person or depending on the group. I to be honest with you, I mean, of course, we're not at the point where we can prove that this was a false flag by any stretch, right? But this is how a conspiracy theory is formed. These are the ingredients to a successful conspiracy theory. What's going on here? Unanswered questions and highly irregular events. They may have explanations, right? But what those explanations are, we don't know. And never let a good crisis go to waste. The Trump administration has already jumped on top of the events that happened in order to justify the ballroom or say our military is doing an incredible job. Our Secret Service that we're not currently paying. Okay, they're not paying these people. The Secret Service that jumped on in front of Trump, J.D. Vance first, which we should talk about. All right. Not even paying these people right now. And it's the greatest. They do the greatest job ever. You know how they do. So here's where we are. We're going to go over what happened last night. We're going to talk about the inconsistencies. Caroline Levitt saying rooms, bang, bang, we're going to shoot up the room. There's going to be shots fired. But more importantly, her husband talking to a Fox News contributor and telling her that she needs to be safe and protected because, and then they cut her off on Fox News. Very interesting. Apparently she ran that back. I'm going to throw that to Weezy because Weezy was familiar with the situation with that she walked it back. When we get there, she walked back what she was trying to say, but we can't just turn a blind eye to when she was getting into the juicy part. Bang, she got cut off at Fox News, so there's that. And I really want to talk about this Pepe the Frog post from back in the day. I'm going to throw that to John. It was from some time travel. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Let's just put it that way. It's a bunch of craziness. I got John Brisson with me here, live from the Kill Shed. What is going on? Jacques Brisson, Black Trump. I love the hair, the lack thereof, I should say. It's very shiny, almost as shiny as Guards, not quite, but he's working towards it. He cut the beard off. He looks fantastic. John Brisson, what is going on? Say what's up to the people.
Glad to be here, young Kennedy, as always. Glad to be here with Guard and Wheezy. And we got a lot to talk about what happened last night. Yeah. Which was weird because I had a intuition, an inkling right before it happened when I heard that Donald Trump was his first appearance at the White House. Correspondence dinner. I had a feeling that something was going to go wrong. And then I actually heard the news media before all this, and I was listening, say, and I quote, "This was the hotel Ronald Reagan had his assassination attempt."
Right.
And I went, "Are they?" And then I didn't pay attention. I went to go watch Shutter Island with my wife. Very disturbing movie. Don't recommend anybody watch it, even though it was very good. Martin Scorsese. But I went back to look at my phone, and sure enough, it was blown up by both Wheezy and Billy that something had happened. So, I went to go look, and here we are. So,
all right. Fantastic. Guard Goldsmith, Liberty Conspiracy. How are you? We always lean on you on times like this. I hit up a guard immediately. And then, of course, typical of me, I didn't hit him back after, until like recently, because I'm the worst at communicating. My apologies, Mr. Guard Goldsmith, but he's here. How are you, sir? Welcome back to the Gorilla Underground. Say what's up to the people.
Hello to everybody watching, and to you, my friend. You make a warm spring day even better, man. Thank you for the invite. It's just, I feel the high fives from you all the time. And I gotta say, whether it's "Stand By Me," the song, or it's "Ballroom Blitz," I've got a lot of different songs in my head right now. And I think a man in the back said "Everyone Attack," and it turned into a "Ballroom Blitz." That's all I can think of right now. So there's a lot to consider here. That's for darn sure. And some of these factors that you guys are discussing, I can't wait to jump in. It's just, it's out of control. And I needed just to sort of compare what I've been thinking about in my own little bubble.
Of course. Can Americans not hit the target? Liz, the Iron Maiden, the queen of the Iron Realm. How are you? God bless you. And no, we can't. It appears that we can't hit the target, but whatever, man. We'll talk about it. Wheezy, what's going on, my dude? What is Truth Podcast? He's joining us here today. He's been screaming at the top of his lungs about Butler, Pennsylvania for a long time, saying that it was a hoax, it was a work, it wasn't real. Now MAGA is screaming the same. MAGA is saying that it wasn't real. They are actively questioning the events that took place on that day. I felt it proper that we have Wheezy on the show, since he's been screaming about that. And now it seems that we have a repetition on our hands. Part two, as they say, let's see what's going on. But Wheezy, say what's up to the people. What's up, man?
What's up, man? The question I have, my conspiracy theory is, why is it that you have hair?
Why do I have hair and no one else seems
Did you not get the memo?
That's a legit question. Now, I will answer this as truthfully as I can. I'm trying to hold on to what it is that I have, right? I used to have like long, flowing, very full hair. It's not that anymore. I know it still looks okay, but I know what it was, so I'm going to ride it out till its last, to the last drip. When it becomes evident that I need to go bald, I'm going to do it. I'll join the ranks of the illustrious. But until then, I will continue to sport my hair. See, I don't have any gaps, really. I have some grays. I have a lot of grays, but it's still there. I still get a haircut I like my hair, but I'm sure I'll like my baldness at some point. That is a legit question, Wheezy. A legit question.
And I got to wonder if John would think that as based or gayst. That is another question.
I think it's hashtag based.
Okay, hashtag based. Copy that.
Fantastic. Yeah, man, tell the people about you, brother. What's up?
Yeah, man, it's been interesting about the whole Butler, Pennsylvania, which happened nearly 2 years ago now. That was one of those events. As soon as I saw the replay, I did a show that day, and I got the news while I was recorded the show, and then I started watching the clips. I'm like, man, as soon as I saw the first clip, I'm like, this thing's kind of staged. And the funny thing is, that's what happened last night. I had no idea about last night's news until Billy texted me. He goes, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't know what you're even referring to." I saw a couple clips. I'm like, oh man, this doesn't seem organic. I don't know. I guess what drives me crazy is I look at people's reactions. I'm expecting to see realism to a lot of these things. And when I see acting, when I see people not reacting naturally, for lack of a better term, then I'm like, man, what the hell is really going on here? So I literally only saw 2 clips, and I told you that, Billy, right?
Yeah.
I go, dude, I'm already seeing a couple clips, and this seems off. I'm not buying it again. And I think the reason why a lot of people are questioning it today, even ex-MAGAs, even people that voted for Trump 2 times previous to this, it's not only because of the economy and he's not delivering on all these promises, but it's because I think a lot of them have revisited Butler, and maybe they bought into it initially, but going back and looking at how people reacted in the crowd and seeing the fakery afoot there has made them like, all right, man, not this again. So even though, I guess for me, looking at it all these months later, when we first came out saying Trump, the Butler, Pennsylvania was fake, we were viewed as crazy, as loony. How could you ever question? Why would they ever fake an assassination attempt just because it's never done before? That is not a good argument to have, is the way I looked at it. You can always set a precedent. The government lies all the time and again. But, and I'm getting off track. I'm trying to keep my thoughts in order because I have so much going through my head right now. But I think that's what laid the groundwork for what we saw yesterday. People realizing that Butler, Pennsylvania was indeed fake. And that's why once you can see the fakery in Butler, it makes seeing the fakery of last night that much more glaringly. It makes you open and like, all right, we already saw this shit again. When you broke the news to me, Billy, initially I was like, I did try to keep them an open mind. I didn't try to say it was fake immediately. I want to see the stuff for myself. Let's check it out. What are they talking about? But then I started seeing the clips and I'm looking at the unnatural reactions of the people. And I was like, yeah, man, we're seeing this all over again.
The purpose of the show tonight, I mean, I needed to go live, and I'm gonna start continuing to go live, Lord willing, week to week to week. I have a ton of work to do. I have no business being on right now, but I wanted to do this. But the purpose is, I don't know if it was a false flag or not. And then what constitutes a false flag? What are we talking about when we say that, right? I don't think it was a staged event. I think it happened, right? But the reasons behind it are different. What do we consider to be staged? Also, all of these things need to be fleshed out. I saw a clip out of MSNBC where this gentleman was talking, guy with an afro, and he was like, I was there. He's like, people think that it was fake because it's not. This is a thing that we need to address, right? Because it's on the right and the left. It's all over now. People are calling it fake. And he's like, how could you say it was fake? I had to call my grandma, and tell her I was hiding under a table. I think he was hiding under a table. I think he was afraid. I don't think he understands what people say, what people think when they say that it was staged, right? And some people are saying that none of it ever happened. There are those people. I don't subscribe to that. I think something happened. And I'm not fully subscribing to all the theories that we're going to discuss right now. I just think they're worth discussing because they're inconsistencies, but on top of that, they're next level weird that even the left has had to admit that they're next level weird. Some of the stuff that's going on. It's like, well, how does this happen? And maybe there's legit explanations for some of this, right? But I want to present all sides here because everybody's coming at it from an angle saying that this is fake. People don't believe it. And I think it lends itself to sure, there's a lot of distrust in government, but now the distrust in the Trump administration is next level, because the left and the people like me that disagreed with him from the beginning always saw him as a fraud. But now the people that he promised the world to see him as a fraud too. So they're quick to say, you know what? This is a bunch of nonsense. He's trying to distract from the disaster in Iran, or he's trying to further distract from the Epstein files, or from Melania getting up there and saying, I had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein out of the blue, right? He's trying to distract from plethora of things, or he's trying to get people behind him for the 2026 midterm elections. There's a whole bunch of different explanations as to why people think this is fake. All right. John Brissom, I'm going to give you some words, and then I'm going to play some clips. I don't know if you can find, if anybody here can find the Pepper the Frog one. I have it somewhere, but I can't find it at this point. If you guys can find it and throw it in the chat so I can throw it at some point, because I want to talk about that. John Brissom, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, when I started analyzing it last night, I started sending you a whole bunch of stuff. That I wasn't covering and stuff like that and everything. There was various narratives that were being painted on social media about the event. One was the so-called lax security. And again, I've heard different sources. Some people were saying that the security was lax there more than normal. Others were saying the security was actually, I was listening to a recent CNN interview of one of the photographers, that the security was actually greater than other White House Correspondents' Dinner because Trump was there. And so you kind of have this back and forth with the security limited, was the security not limited? So you have confusion in that. You have the woman, if you could play the clip, Billy, being interviewed.
I have it.
Okay. Yeah, and the whole Caroline Levitt discussion as well too. If you could play that, you have various narratives back and forth of people being cut off and not being able to finish what they're going to say, and you have various narratives at play when we talk about the Henry Martinez X posts in a minute. All these things are being pushed. I saw so many different narratives last night. They rushed J.D. Vance off first and then tackled Trump. And Trump's an old man. Why did they tackle him like that? They could have hurt him, is it because Peter Thiel was an assassination attempt done by Peter Thiel to try to kill Trump so they could put Vance in? We also had rumors of Israel's involvement. We had the fake IDF AI picture of the shooter wearing an IDF shirt that was pushed very early this morning. That was
I didn't know that was fake.
It was fake, yes.
Wow.
And so that was being pushed as well too, out there. And we have the discussion of him. He was some sort of tutor. He seemed to be a smart individual. And he had a college degree and was a video game designer. He was all these things. He had an internship at NASA, and then, he wrote a manifesto that was given out to his family, but the manifesto has not been released yet. Okay. So if you go on X and you see
it has been released. It has been released.
Are you sure? Because I haven't.
Yeah, it's on the California Post. We read it with Steve.
There is a manifesto out there. There's a manifesto out there. I don't know if it's the legit one.
Exactly, yeah. Because there's one part where I was like, there's no way this is real.
I'll find it for you.
Where I'm reading it, where he's like, oh, there's lax security. And if I could have got it, if I was Iranian, I could have got a chain gun in and named it Deuce or whatever. Maybe that's the quote unquote legitimate one, or maybe it's not. But to me, that seemed a little too off when I was reading it, that people were putting forth that was the manifesto. Now, to my knowledge, when I looked, there was no manifesto that's being reported by the mainstream media. And I understand Mockingbird.
We're going to source that right now. We're going to do it right now. Go ahead, buddy.
But I have not seen one. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I missed it. Yeah, I'm human. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But I saw excerpts that they were giving about the manifesto. And what it seemed to be was anti-Christian, anti-Trump, rhetoric that was being used specifically by the shooter. And again, I don't like Cole Allen. I forgot his full 3 letters, but usually used was assassins. But the point is there's a lot of back and forth. We have Obama coming out and tweeting that we don't really know the motive of Cole Allen, which puts forth even what are you doing, Obama? Can't you just be quiet? I'm no fan of Obama by any stretch of imagination. But, when we get into the whole Cole Allen thing, we get to the ops that were being run live and have continued to run. You have all the influencers coming out there that are pro-MAGA on X, giving talking points specifically to push for the ballroom, right? And you have Trump, pushing for the ballroom in his own speech, and the photo comes out with him in the Oval Office, getting details about, Cole Allen, a lot of it's just, whether it was staged or not, I lean towards more likely that it was. And it's a mixed event. Not everybody there was in on it. Okay. In my opinion,
the mainstream is reporting on a manifesto. So
that it exists, but I haven't seen it been posted in its entirety yet. As far as the media reporting it as
Trump says suspects. Right. I see your point. Hold on for a second.
So one exists, we just don't have it yet. The FBI hasn't released it.
Manifesto reveals the alleged gunman picked one Trump official to spare. So there must be something.
Yeah, they talk about excerpts of it, but to my knowledge, it has not been fully released yet. To my knowledge, right. Just reports on excerpts of it.
Okay. I got several things sent to me. That I saw there was a manifesto. I just assumed it was real. I haven't read it. I've been talking with Wheezy on air for the past 3 hours, and before that, I was doing.
We have to track back the original source of where it got leaked, because in the age of social media and AI fabrication,
totally agreed, 100%.
I mean, even Coalin's manifesto, did the government did they fake it? We don't know.
One thing
that's what me and Steve were saying.
The rest of the crew is that if I were doing something like this. And I always got to bring it back to me because it's my experience, right? Like, who does this shit? Like, who sits down, especially after all the people that have done something, that have written a manifesto and it's been used against whatever they're trying to do, right? Why would you sit down and write down your thoughts about what you're going to do and why you're going to do it? Unless you want it to be known after you die, maybe. I mean, but I don't see that. I don't know. I wouldn't have done something like that. I guess that's why it's hard for me to believe. Anyway, Gar Goldsmith, what's up?
Well, when they talked about manifesto, I thought they were talking about the Roxy Music album. So I'm out there. But I have to say, I've actually been in that ballroom at the hotel, and I saw Jesse Jackson there in 1989. And I covered it for a journalism internship I was doing. I was at the back entrance, just where Reagan got shot, at that little garage back entrance that's sort of sunk behind that wall. And the first two things that came to my mind were, first, the perimeter security on this very clearly was not right. There was something screwed up there. If their narrative is that this guy got in the way he got in, carrying what he carried, or got in there earlier, then he had to have had knowledge and have been going in there. But they would have already been setting up security days and days and days before. They would have people stationed there. They'd be watching for safety leaks and security problems. And they said he came out of some hidden alcove, like, hammer space, and just appeared somewhere. Utterly ridiculous. And the other thing about it is, if this is not AI, then you got the Google Trends searching for the guy. And that the minute you hear about that, you say, okay, that's another massive red flag.
But Gard, about that real quick, it's always Israel, right? It's always out of Israel, right? To me, every single time, really, that type of pattern isn't like it's being manufactured to make it look that way.
Exactly. And we already have Vault 7. So how do we deal with that? What can you say is reliable on that? And so to me, there's so many questions about this. One of the things that often comes to my mind is, as an anarchist, I oppose all forms of the state, right? So I it's not that I don't feel a curiosity into who the bad guys are and what malefactors might be at play and what forces might be trying to come around, but it's sort of one of these things where I'm so not invested in any of these evildoers that I sort of look at it and I'm always skeptical of everything they give us, everything. And so regardless of the information that I get, I say to myself, okay, I look at these various things that people debate and they find interesting, and I find them of curiosity. But in the end, it's not changing the fact that I know that this giant group of people down there are constantly breaking their oaths to the Constitution, constantly feeding international warfare and death and destruction. Then that feeds into, well, this guy supposedly has a manifesto. What are they going to try to do to try to malign some group if they are manufacturing this? That's where my mind sort of takes these steps to say, okay, I'm distanced from it, but how will they be trying to leverage this to try to attack people who might be putting forward a message that I think is valid, or might be putting forward a message that I don't think is valid? And so that, to me, is one of the reasons to try to figure out whether this is a false flag. And if it is a false flag, then, what evidence can I get early on that would indicate to me, at least be indicative of the idea that it is a construct? And the security protocols here, and the way that this guy got in there, and some of the other things like that Fox News appearance, and some of the statements, it might have been, maybe Karoline Leavitt was just, flapping her lips and she said the wrong stupid thing. But, some of those things are alarm bells to me. So the things that I think that are secure here, that I know are really, really bogus, are the safety protocols. There's no way that they would have operated this way. There's no way they wouldn't have had that entire block secured days beforehand and have monitors in there watching everything. There's otherwise, the guy didn't have any criticism for Kash Patel. So, maybe the fact that the security protocols were so bad, maybe people will be thinking about like, well, Kash Patel, if only that great hero had been more involved here. The whole thing is, to me, a massive security problem. And that indicates to me that there's something else going on and that this was a setup.
It's hard to argue, right? When you know how things like this should go, in particular for the president of the United States, right? Yeah. And it could be massive incompetence, because I've been saying this for forever and a day since these people came into power, Guard, that they're dumb as stones. Not all of them, but the majority of them are dumb as shit, right? So maybe they failed to set up the proper security measures, and this happened. That is a possibility, but damn it, man, it's common sense, right? Yeah. That if an event like this is taking place, apparently what they said was you weren't subject to metal detectors until you made it into the ballroom. This is what one of the reporters that was in there said. She was like, I didn't have to. I think it was Caitlin Collins. Don't quote me on it, but I think it was her from CNN. She was like, I didn't have to get wound down until I got into the ballroom itself. So somebody from the mainstream said this, and the guy clearly got in. He was in there with a shotgun, with a gun and knives. And here's the footage. I'm going to play it in a second. I don't know what they're saying on Fox. This is a Fox News clip. This is the first one I found, so I kept it. I don't know what they're saying in the lead up to it. But my goal for this video is to seeing the guy running like Quicksilver. I mean, boom, like he was some type of freaking superhuman. Just ran through all of these people. Nobody stopped him till way after the fact. I think that's suspect, for one. But they should have locked down the hotel. They should have had people from the outside allowed to reserve a room for that day. They needed to cancel before or after and made sure the people were gone. They needed to have access to the entire hotel and block it off, and maybe block off a block after that and have heavy checkpoints. I mean, that's what would make sense to me if Donald Trump is giving a speech of that magnitude and everybody's in there. All of the administration is in there. To have that lack security is incredible to me, right? At basement, the basement of it is incredible negligence and stupidity. That's the floor. We can build upon that and start talking about conspiracies and otherwise, right? And what we're allowing to happen. But the floor is incredible negligence and stupidity, right? So I want to show that. Wheezy, before we show the clip, your thoughts?
Well, I think there's many. I mean, you guys touched on the Karoline Leavitt and how wild of a statement it was that she made prior to the event. But then she's also connected to other weird stuff and shenanigans that happened later on that night. For example, she was there receiving that letter from the magician when, right before they carried off Trump. Also, there was a caller that was talking about how she was there with Karoline Leavitt's husband, and was going to get into some very salacious stuff. And then her phone gets cut off. So Miss Caroline Levitt keeps coming up on, I mean, what are the odds of these things? I know you may dismiss it as evidence and proof and everything, but I keep saying to myself, when there's so many crazy coincidences, so many wild instances like these, at what point do you say, all right, man, there's definitely more to this? You know what I'm saying?
Well, we can say that there's more to it, but we can demand evidence at the same time. We need more to make outlandish allegations like this. We need more evidence, right? There's certainly things going on. There's certainly things that are weird, coincidences, quote unquote. Maybe I don't know. I think this goes beyond that personally. But as far as calling it a total staged event, we don't know that. We just don't. It could have been gross incompetence, and they've displayed gross incompetence many times. What we feel, we try to be fact-based here on this show. We try to be evidence-based here, when we're moving forward. I feel like it's important to point these anomalies out, and full disclosure, it is pure speculation by all of us, what's being discussed here right now. Of course, it is informed speculation, but it's a speculation nonetheless. And none of us have proof of anything here. And we're discussing what we think of what's gone down here. Everybody.
We also haven't been shown any proof. We've got some grainy images here and being told a narrative, but we haven't got any proof ourselves. So that's my pushback to that.
That's not a pushback. That's agreeing. We don't have any proof. I know what you're trying to say, buddy. I know what you're trying to say, but we don't have any proof of any of this, right? We have what we're seeing. That's it. And maybe it'll change a week from now. But as of right now, we don't have that. But I do want to discuss the craziness around this. All right, because it is crazy nonetheless. Let me play this video real quick. I'll go around the horn. We'll play Caroline Levitt a few times also, and the clip that Weezy was discussing. All right.
31-year-old Cole Allen will be arraigned in federal district court on Monday, tomorrow. As of right now, he faces 2 preliminary charges, including a weapons charge and an assault on a federal officer using a dangerous weapon. And this comes after police say the suspect rushed a security checkpoint, shooting a Secret Service agent who was protected by his bulletproof vest in an effort to reach the room where President Trump and members of his cabinet were attending the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
All right, that's the footage of him breaching security, and then he, I don't think he made it to the ballroom. He didn't make it very close to Donald Trump, so Trump was really not in danger, and I do want to show the footage of J.D. Vance being ushered out of there ASAP, because I've heard theories on the left and on the right, but I heard them on the left that, there is the possibility that Peter Thiel wants Donald Trump out of the way now, and they would like, or they see that 2028 isn't a possibility for Peter Thiel, so they'd like him to take power as soon as possible. These are the theories that are being put out there. This will fuel that fire. Watching how J.D. Vance was ushered out of there. Now, my wife told me, she goes, well, maybe they had a different security detail. And that's very possible. It still doesn't excuse the president of the United States being left there for like an additional 30 seconds, and then they came back for him and ushered him out. I don't understand it, but that's a possible explanation. So now this is the footage of him like running like the Flash, past these people with a shotgun, a gun, and several knives. John Brisson.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to me. I mean, all of it. Like, we need more information. The narratives that are being pushed. Was it Iran? Was it Israel? Was it Peter Thiel and Palantir? It's another choose your whole own adventure. Whatever you feel like happened, what happened. Whatever you feel like whoever caused it to happen. That seems like what we're getting. And that's why we have most of America now, not just conspiracy theorists. Most of America now, especially tomorrow, when they're going to be around their water coolers, they're going to argue these various points with one another. Right. And they're not really going to what happened. Okay. And they're not really going to discuss, okay, so what does this mean going forward? What is the Trump administration? How do they use this? Okay. And it depends on which way the investigation goes, right? Whether it was a legitimate attempt or not. Right. And how the social media spins it through fifth generational warfare, and how the media and the alternative media spins it as well, too, especially when we talk about the X posts in a minute and the narratives that are being pushed through all this. So, again, you have the narrative pushed by conservative CMP controlled alternative media on X. We need the ballroom. We need the ballroom. Trump going interview and saying we need the ballroom. Right. So that was being pushed specifically. Who did it? MAGA says the left. Okay. The left says Peter Thiel. The alt-right says Israel.
Right.
So which one you got to choose?
Yeah. Which one feels better? Right.
Yeah. Which one feels most right to you?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that's exactly what's being pushed. Now, you could also add another part in that, which would be, conspiracy researchers like all four of us here, right? Where we think it's most likely was done by the Trump administration, the people around the Trump administration for whatever reason. Okay. Maybe I'm speaking for you guys. Maybe you guys think Israel did it. Maybe you guys think Iran did it. I think it's more likely it's Trump and the people around him. For whatever reason, we don't know yet. Is it to crack down on Democrats and be able to have the idea that now they can create some sort of civil war where, they're arresting Obama and Hillary Clinton and they're cracking down on the left? Maybe it goes that way. Maybe it goes where Iran is somehow later found out to be involved, right? And some is, I even saw it being pushed on X that, Bibi Netanyahu has given information to Trump that Iran was involved in this. And then Weezy posted the manifesto. It's not the full manifesto, Weezy, but it's a good part of it from New York Post that's being put around on X and being put around everywhere else. But New York Post isn't really going into detail how they came across it. They're like, well, family members got a copy of the manifesto and we got a copy and here it is. But no one else, again, I didn't even know the New York Post was the one who reported it because no one else is reporting on it. So what does that mean? Do they not want you to read the manifesto? Does it mean they want you to read the manifesto? It's like, what does all this mean? So when we talk about the Pepe post later, all I can tell you is this is a fifth generational warfare narrative driven event. Whether it was a false flag or not, we can argue about that until we're blue. But what is going to come out of this? What is going to happen? Because they didn't do this for nothing.
And I think, to your point, and then I'll go around the horn, I think what happened with the Southern Poverty Law Center and that situation, this lends itself to that, to fuel the conspiracy theories, because they're already saying, oh, look, the Southern Poverty Law Center was funding the KKK and they were funding extremist groups in order to continue to foment hate, not to do away with it, right? And so this guy does it. It's the extreme left, right, that's done this. This guy, they're making, as they've done with every other event that's happened, they say, oh, it's the left that's doing this. He was probably funded by whomever, fill in the blank, right? George Soros, Peter Thiel, whatever. And they'll use the Southern Poverty Law Center situation in order to justify what's going on here. It's a work on a work on a work. What's up, Gard?
Well, all I got to say is thank goodness they've got gun control in Washington, D.C. And, hey, it's a good thing we're going to have FISA be able to check up on all these people now. We're all going to be super, super safe. These evil people, FISA will take care of all that, regardless of the Fourth Amendment. It's a good thing to be able to breach the Fourth Amendment and scour people's social media privately and that sort of thing. But I put in the link also for the talk about social media for what you guys have probably already seen. I think every one of you mentioned it. The systematic within minutes post of the same. We need the ballroom in the White House. This shows us why we need the ballroom in the White House, sort of thing, going from point A to point Z.
This shows us why we need Department of Homeland Security funding.
Yeah, exactly. And, there are various circumstances, like the conversation you had with your wife, Billy Ray, about, why they would get JD Vance first, on the fly, that sort of thing. JD Vance, a little more fit. They help him get up. Donald Trump, a little older. Who knows what the exact nuances were as far as that was concerned. But it's a very strange thing to try to parse this information out, as you guys say, with some of these revelations that have come around about the Southern Poverty Law Center, about what they were doing in Charlottesville. And then we got the whole thing with a year ago, the so-called assassination attempt there. And the point that you brought up is so key is, if you watch Magicians, right? If you watch any of the MGM studio thing for Raiders of the Lost Ark, it looks really real to most everybody, except the people who are in on the stage show. And they know what's going on. And so clearly they could put together something where they've got somebody set up as a patsy, such as Pennsylvania, and the people there think it's all for real, but it's done for the purposes of a narrative, to push forward a narrative, to wag the dog, to do it for old shoe, And so I do think that the indications are, and even I'll give you just one other thing, even if people are to say there's some sinister aspect to all these people tied to MAGA putting out this post, obviously, the secondary thought is, well, some very quick thinking person in the White House might have said, oh, we can leverage this. Maybe it wasn't pre-planned, but they see the event and they can say, now we can use this to our advantage to say Trump's got an excuse for his White House ballroom. You can go in a lot of different directions on this, but very clearly to me, the fact that this guy was in there indicates to me that somebody behind the scenes, it would take numerous people behind the scenes to not operate the perimeter and the interior of that thing properly. And it really stretches credibility to think, my own mental credibility to think that someone is going to be in there and ready to do that, and traveling across the country, posting this manifesto, and all of a sudden he's going to pop up there and start running across the lobby. And that, to me, that's a bunch of, they say we have a fertilizer shortage right now. I think you can turn to that narrative for plenty of fertilizer.
Fantastic, bro. I'm going to go to Weezy after I play this clip. Weezy's going to get a first crack on it. There's also footage of the shooter years ago on television with Usha Vance. Unless that has been verified, I'm not even sure if it has. Go ahead.
The footage is real of him on the newsreel, but the Usha Vance part is not real. That's not her. It's another somebody person.
Else. Thank you for the correction.
But the footage of him being on a newsreel, just like we see with a lot of these crisis actors, I'm just saying, is super sketchy.
Yeah, there's footage of it. I have the footage here. I read that. Like I said, I've been talking with Weezy on air for the majority of the day, so I haven't looked into this. But thank you for clearing that up. And that's what I mean here. There's so much of this. I'm going to play this clip. This is the Caroline Levitt clip of her probably just talking out of bounds. But damn it, man, it didn't translate well for the rest of the night.
To rumble, is he not?
He is ready to rumble. I will tell you. This speech tonight will be classic Donald J. Trump. It'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. There will be some shots fired tonight in the room. So everyone should tune in. It's going to be really great. I'm looking forward to hearing it.
I love it all. To rumble.
You guys want to hear it again? We'll play it again.
Is he not?
He is ready to rumble. I will tell you. This speech tonight will be classic Donald J. Trump. It'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. There will be some shots fired tonight in the room.
Shots fired in the room. Now that could mean anything. I think I know what she was trying to say. I don't think there that she was saying there were literal shots fired. It makes it harder to make that argument after her husband said what he said. I think that's way more incriminating, and we'll play that after this. But this is the anatomy of a conspiracy theory. This is the first, these are one of the seeds that plant doubt and plant paranoia on behalf of these people, and everyone else is just like, we look at this and like, was there foreknowledge? So that's it. What's up, Wheezy?
So where's the rest of the footage, man? All we've received are that one little footage where the dude is busting butt, like Usain Bolt. And it's grainy as hell. Benny Johnson just put a version of it, and at the very top left corner of the post he put up, it says CapCut AI. And the way they've been explaining that is, well, we had to clean it up because the original footage was grainy, blah, blah. How do we not know that the footage that was given was an AI? And why? We're living in an age where there's cameras everywhere. This is one of the things that I made a big point of with Butler. How come we, to this very day, we haven't seen a shot, video footage or photograph of the ear that allegedly took the shot? To this day, it's no different than the Pentagon stills that have been released after 25 years, essentially. And even in Las Vegas, the alleged shootout between the security guard and Paddock, we still haven't seen any footage of that. And now we've been released a couple little footages of a hallway thing, and that's it. When there's cameras everywhere, every square inch, especially at a high level event where there's so much millions of dollars in net worth of people in there, you're telling me there's no more footage of that? I mean, you want to add more to the anatomy of a conspiracy theory, man. There's just so much to it.
Yeah.
It just goes on and on and on. I'm not buying a damn thing.
All right. Now, let me play this one, and then I'll go to the rest of the room here. But this is the one that I found most suspicious. This was crazy. She got cut off, and apparently she came back and said that people were reading too much into it, and that's very possible. But damn it, man. Anyway,
again, how many coincidences, Billy?
Man, hold on for a second.
I want to just quickly tell you, I was sitting next to Caroline Levitt, the press secretary's husband. He was one of our guests. He was seated right next to me, and right as the dinner was starting, the national anthem happened, and then he kind of leaned over and said, I watched you on TV, you did a great job. You need to be very safe. And he was just very serious when he said that to me. And he kind of looked around the room and he said, there are some...
Boom, gone. Look. Is it playing?
Sounds like we lost Aisha's phone there. And
they waited for a bit before they said that. And I mean, it just couldn't happen at the worst time. And, why would she say this? Why would she say this? I think this is part of the disconnect between the mainstream and the alternative community. The mainstream just shuts off anything that the alternative community has to say. And so does the alternative community. They just shut off whatever the mainstream has to say. And when you see something like this, the alternative community doesn't go, I can understand why you think that that's a problem. And we have a conversation about it, right? Because everybody's just like, no, you're reading too much into it. No. This is a problem. That's a problem. That it needs to be explained. We need a proper explanation. Then if we get a proper explanation, we don't accept it. Right? The people in the alternative media don't accept it. The ones who want to believe what they want to believe, they just don't accept it. So this is where we're stuck. But this is what I mean about the anatomy of a conspiracy theory. These are how these things take shape. And then from these events, Cambridge Analytica style 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, now I'm saying this is Cambridge Analytica itself. John and I do this all the time whenever we do a show. It's an umbrella style a term that we are using for the operations that are run, right? They take this and just throw everything in the kitchen sink around it. And people who don't know any better fall for it. And boom, there you have it. You know, and then it spreads on social media. Social media isn't interested in facts. They're interested in how long your eyeballs are on that screen. That's it. They don't care what they're feeding you. Right? They don't care. You know, it's just whatever it is. All right, I'm going to John, then I'm coming to Guard. What's up, John?
Billy, before that, I need you to play what I just posted.
Okay.
I need you to prepare yourself, Billy, because hashtag this is going to trigger you. Hashtag trigger warning.
Okay. All right, go ahead, continue.
No, I mean, we're stuck in fifth generation warfare. What am I supposed to say? Like, what I mean, the change to the Smith Modernization Act was an issue. Like, we have open propaganda, not like before that we didn't, but now it's so boldened, the propaganda that we have on social media to drive someone every which way, that, you know, especially with this is the narrative they're building, Billy. That's why you got to play this, because this is what they're building.
All right, I'm trying to play it. I'm trying to get at it.
I don't want to explain it.
All right, so let's go to Guard. Guard, what do you think about all of this?
Okay, well, a couple things. First, I think it's astounding that Karoline Leavitt's husband is so concerned about the safety of reporters when she virtually every day gets up in front of reporters and essentially talks about how wonderful it is that the United States is supporting Israel, as Israel has killed approximately 275 reporters between Gaza and Lebanon, and they just blasted apart. They attempted to kill Steve Sweeney 4 weeks ago, a reporter for RT, and they just killed a Lebanese reporter whom, of course, that was a double tap, and they stopped the ambulance from getting to her. So his concern for reporters seems a little bit disingenuous to me and pretty disgusting, you know?
Yeah.
It's and to top it off, she's pregnant. Their child will be paying the taxes to pay for this massive debt, for this new $1.5 trillion death machine that the United States government military wants to put forward for the children, while children in Iran and Lebanon and Gaza are being blown to pieces. Right. It's pretty ridiculous. The hypocrisy of it is astounding. And until somebody like Karoline Leavitt actually discusses the fact, like, you know, we didn't even realize how terrible it is that here we are talking about the protection of journalists at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and everybody's in their gowns while people are starving and trying to get water in the Middle East, and the United States is trying to impose an embargo with my baby's future tax money. It's everything about it is completely unbalanced for anybody with a shred of ethics in their bodies.
100.
But they don't have ethics. They don't have that. They have plans and they have outcomes is what they want.
I agree. 100%. Big shouts to Josh Corey. What's going on, buddy? How are you? Good to see you. I got to hit you up and we got to kick it. Is that from Response 47, John? John?
It is, yes.
It is. Okay, fine. All right, Weezy, your thoughts before we go into this next clip?
Well, I'm probably going to bounce. I got to wake up early in the morning, so I want to thank you, Billy.
All right, buddy.
Good hanging out with you, Gardner, and my buddy Johnny Brissom. I'll hit you up in the morning. Thanks for having me. And as far as my thoughts, I think it's all fake and rainbows, and so I'll leave you with that.
All right, later, buddy. Be good. All right, there goes Weezy. Let me play this real quick.
The so-called manifesto is a stunning thing to read, Mr. President. He appears to reference a motive in it. He writes this quote, administration officials, they are targets. And he also wrote this, I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people, horrible people. Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
Do you think he was referring to you?
That's what I'm talking about here. That was fantastic. That was fantastic. Let me finish this, but that was fantastic on behalf of this reporter.
I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap, from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. Your friends on the other side of the plate are the ones that were involved with, let's say, Epstein or other things. But I said to myself, I'll do this interview and I read the manifesto, he's a sick person, but you should be ashamed of yourself reading that, because I'm not any of those things.
Mr. President,
and I was
these are
never,
the gunman's words.
Excuse me. You shouldn't be reading that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace. But go ahead, let's finish the interview.
The other thing.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Johnny, I'm gonna let you comment on that first, since you introduced the clip. Good Lord. Oh my God, Guard, I can't wait to get your thoughts on this, man. Go ahead, Johnny. What's up?
Okay. So, yeah, that's where they're going with it. We got the problem solved. It looks like they're going to pull the Democrats and anybody who disagrees with Herr Trump card, especially you got to clue up the next clip from Aaron Rupar, Billy, because it sums it up, bud. I got to listen to that in a minute. 60 Minutes, Ellison, CBS.
Exactly.
They want this. This is what they want this out there. This is what's this is the narrative they want out. All right. Now the question is it Israel putting the screws on Trump? Or does Trump want this out there to eventually civil war and Democrats and division and stuff like that? Again, choose your own adventure. Which one do you listening think the reason why this happened?
Absolutely, man. Guard Goldsmith. You know what I really liked, though? It was like, hey, what do you think he was talking about you? Because he immediately became defensive. And of course they're talking about him, but that was fast. That was quick thinking on her part. And then he does what Donald Trump does. He's just like, oh, you're disgusting. You're horrible. And people back then, 4 years ago or 10 years ago, they were like, well, he's really giving it to the fake news. But now we see what he was actually doing, deflecting. That's what he's been doing this entire time. What's up, Guard?
Yeah, it's interesting. It could go one of two ways or a bunch of ways. But my first blush reaction was, well, good for her. She puts him in his spot. And then you think the next thought, which John brought up, Ellison, CBS ownership. So maybe this is a big play to try to discount any attempt to try to attack Donald Trump for his association with Epstein, because of an unhinged guy just went after him, and that was part of his manifesto. So maybe that confrontation between the two of them was actually set up as well. I mean, the guy,
you think it's gonna work?
I don't. Yeah, it's. I don't think it's going to work, because I think people are so concerned about this, and the proof is going to be in the pudding as far as whether or not they're actually getting the information that people like Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna have wanted to get. And it's very clear the way that he went after people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, and she was animated. That was one of the major reasons why she said, I'm not running again. This place is a cesspool. And she was upset. And I take her at her word. And I think Thomas Massie's inclinations are honest there. And I think Ro Khanna is honest as well. And, whether any information is going to come out of the Epstein files, I don't think so. I highly doubt it. But it's possible, like John brought up, is that, this actually could be a larger stage play to get 60 Minutes to go in there. Maybe they're no longer the last pocket of journalistic integrity on CBS. Maybe it's all being washed away. And we already know they got rid of one story on CBS a while back, and that got people pretty upset about it. So I don't know. It's interesting. It could be either one of those narratives or something I haven't even thought of.
Yeah, and I don't think it was staged to that point. I think she was genuinely asking questions and he was genuinely answering them. Will they co-opt what happened there? Probably. That's just what they do, right? They always, never let a good crisis go to waste. Never let a good opportunity go to waste. These are opportunities that they can jump on and exploit, right? Things like that. But she seemed genuine. I think there is genuine pushback to Donald Trump, because I see it every day. Right, we're about to get into the. He sent John sent another clip about No Kings. We're going to play it right now, and You know, there's the narrative that the No Kings protests are somehow funded by George Soros, that he's paying all these millions and millions of protesters are being paid by the left to come out there. No, there is legit pushback here. And if they're being paid by the government or by George Soros or anybody else, please produce the receipts. I would like to see them. I still have it. I'd like to see the receipts. Please show them. I'm sure if some of you got paid to go protest, you guys held the receipts, right? Or you got the wire, you got Zelle, right? Zelle keeps a record of everything. Apple Pay. I'm sure you could just say, oh, look, here's George Soros. Apple paid me X amount of money to go protest. It sounds ridiculous because it is. Just saying. All right, we're gonna play the next clip here. John, go ahead and set it up.
So, you know, of course, everything that we have, right, is, you know, Trump's not a rapist. Trump's not a pedophile. You have Trump derangement syndrome. If you feel that way, how dare you? You know, what are you doing? Or are you trying to set up, just by mentioning these things, further assassination attempts? Because, you know, Trump just uses hyperbolic rhetoric, right? But if I say that Trump is very much likely a pedophile with Epstein, then, you know, Trump can threaten about annihilating Iran and killing millions upon millions upon millions of people, and somehow that doesn't draw ire towards him. But me calling out that I think he's a pedophile for some reason puts his life in danger. And I can understand that it could, but you know, it is what it is. You can't compare the two. I hear people on X all the time comparing the two. I don't want anybody to hurt Trump. I don't want Trump to be hurt. Would I like him to be, you know, arrested and investigated and you know, and stuff like that? Of course. But I don't want anybody to kill him. I don't want any violence against anybody. I'm a nonviolent Christian, you know. But that being said, though, that's what the rhetoric is. So now they're trying to set up, you're a horrible person. You have Trump derangement syndrome. You want Trump to die. You know, you're a traitor. They're setting up that rhetoric. Okay?
It's not going to work, Johnny.
I know I may or may not, but I'm saying that's what they're doing.
They're attempting it. Of course, they're trying to co-opt the narrative.
Right here is another example of that. So go ahead.
I'm about to play it. I think let me play it first, and then I'll give my thoughts. Hold on for a second. I haven't seen this. This is Johnny. Good job, John, for getting all of this. All right.
He had attended a No Kings protest in California.
No Kings.
What did security tell you about what may have been his motives?
The reason you have people like that is you have people doing no kings. I'm not a king. What I am, if I was a king, I wouldn't be dealing with you.
No, this guy is so disrespectful. So disrespectful. And you know, this goes back, and I'll say it again, this goes back to Stephen Miller. All those months back, talking about domestic terrorism and how the left were a domestic extremist group, you know, and anybody that goes out to a No Kings protest, and they've been incredibly peaceful. They've happened 3 times already, and these are millions and millions of people that have come out, and it's been peaceful. So that's worth noting. But everybody that goes out there is in danger. Everyone, because Stephen Miller said so. And they're painting it in that picture right now. If you go out and protest No Kings, I am not a king, you're freaking crazy, and you're an extremist that's trying to kill me.
Yes, exactly. That is what they're doing.
Right.
They are trying to frame all of that so that if you say anything bad about the Mad King Emperor himself, you are a traitor and you deserve to die.
Absolutely.
The Justice Department brought back death by firing squad this past week. Yes, when you connect all these things together, that's the direction of what they're pushing for.
And the electric chair.
Exactly, yes.
They brought that back. Listen, Kash Patel had alluded to this before the election. Ivan Rancliffe has straight up said it, that they want to kill people, all right? They said that they want to go to the highest extent of the law for treason. Look that up. Look what that is, what the highest extent of the law is for treason.
Death.
It's death. Okay, just saying. I don't know if they'll ever get there, to be honest. I doubt it. I think all of this stuff is really falling apart. But do they want that? Why are you bringing back killing people with a firing squad? They did this. Again, anatomy of a conspiracy theory, but they're actually doing this. This is fact-based. Go look it up. They brought back killing people at a firing squad. Go ahead, Gardner Goldsman.
Well, the pushback there and what you guys are bringing up, that's the sort of thing that at a certain point you get to this realization, as you guys have, that some of the people within conspiracy circles are plants, and they are supposed to mix a little bit of the truth with some bald-faced lie, which then can be leveraged to then malign all of the argument against these people. And so, for example, when I was covering for MRC TV, some of the protests out in Portland and some of the BLM stuff, there were a lot of weird questions like, okay, where are these bricks coming from? What about these buses? Now, some people could say, hey, somebody wants to fund somebody to allow more people in to facilitate more protests. Let them go ahead and do it. Are there Soros splinter groups? Is this sort of a color revolution motif that we saw in Ukraine on the streets of Kiev in late 2013, early 2014? It's possible. It's possible that's the case. But to me, it's pretty clear that they are going to utilize this, and there are going to be a lot of innocent people who have honest to goodness problems with what the government is doing, and they're going to try to shut down their narrative. They're going to try to shut down their speech. And it is really striking to think that a lot of the MAGA people will be so protective of Donald Trump that they won't remember that it was their group of people speaking about the lockdowns and speaking about the fact that they couldn't go to work and speaking about the fact that they were being censored in social media, talking about the masks or the mRNA. All those things, that's out the window now. Like literally, I worked with people at MRC TV who were on my side about getting the message out and getting information out there that was being suppressed by the Biden administration through groups, as like NewsGuard, that were getting federal money and then coming after us. And they were hassling us with money that was coming off of the taxpayer, right? I'll say it again. So now we've got so many of the MAGA people who are so invested in their icon, Donald Trump, that they're willing to actually not parse it to say, there's some validity to a lot of what these people say. And maybe they're trying to use that and they're trying to hijack it to malign everybody. And regardless of whether this is part of the narrative or not, even if this guy is an honest to goodness solo actor and he had attended a No Kings protest and all this type of stuff, what the heck difference does that make?
So what?
Does that make everybody at the No Kings protest mad killers?
Well, yeah, exactly. How many people showed up there and didn't do anything at all?
Yeah.
That's painted with an extrrely broad brush.
Yeah.
These are the loose connections. I'm sorry, Guard, finish up.
No, I was going to say it's just so frustrating. And so, then you get the problem again, which is people with whom I've worked, when we saw that, yes, there are groups that, especially in Ukraine, the Soros subgroups were funding these guys. They were working with USAID. They had set up offices, all these different types of things, 100% real. I mean, literally, as I've mentioned before, a guy I know who worked for Eric Holder and left just before the Fast and Furious stuff became revealed. I went to high school with him, and in late December, he was asking me where I was getting my information on Ukraine because I was reporting on the coup that they were trying to do. And I said, well, I'm just looking it up. I know the CIA is involved. I know the Soros groups are involved. He goes, well, you're right. And there's a lot more. And then he didn't want to talk to me about it anymore. He said, well, I got a daughter. I'm not going to say anything else. So, he might've been playing up the drama. I often say that, but this is the problem that we run into. And, to bring it out to a larger philosophical point, this is the problem of collectivism, because so many people from so many groups have so much invested for their own reasons that you can find some corrupt portions of those groups that are oppositional, and then you can try to malign everybody.
Right.
It's the more the government does, the more people are going to be arguing with each other, and the more probability there is that some of those splinters are going to be funded by groups that you think are nefarious groups. It's just the way that it's going to go.
And that's it right there, what you said, and there's loose connections that people make out as if they're freaking concrete.
But it's not people, the government's doing it now.
Sometimes, yeah, it's fifth generation warfare. I understand that. I know where it's coming from, but I'm talking about at a lower level, not at the top, right? I think
but
it's
the government doing it is more problematic, right? Because
that's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Right. That's the issue, right? But we also have to take responsibility for ourselves. You know,
very much so, yes.
So it's important to point out that people, in particular here in the alt media, there's a loose connection and they take it because it feels good. And they're like, yep, this is what's happening. They're all involved. Look at them, all of them. And it's not really that way. We have to find a middle ground. We have to be, and I just came off a show with Weezy where people were telling me that evidence didn't matter. I don't know how I get into a conversation where they're telling me that they don't need evidence. Or they're literally in the comment section, they're like, oh, there goes Billy talking about evidence again. I'm like, really, bro? You know, and literally that's what we were going round and round as semantics and trying to, it was crazy. But we need evidence. We need evidence for this stuff. That's the part of us. That's one of the pillars of civilization, of a next level society. If we wish to grow as humans, we need evidence for some of this stuff. You know, evidence doesn't care about your feelings type shit. That was, the facts doesn't care about your feelings is what Ben Shapiro made famous. And I hate Ben Shapiro. But, you know, if you don't subscribe to something because it bothers you, that doesn't make it any less real. You know, it's like, I could give a bunch of examples about that, but I'm not going to. I'm just saying what Guard Goldsmith said, I resonate with it. It makes sense to me, you know. And also, to take it another level, just because George Soros is funding things that you don't like doesn't make it a conspiracy. He's funding things that you are against, and you're against them politically, right? And maybe you're against them morally. Right. But to call it like a next level malignant conspiracy, we would need to suss that out somehow. We can have different opinions, you know, but that doesn't mean there's an overarching conspiracy of epic proportions. That is what is it, John Birch style conspiracy. That's not what this means. Guard, I'm going to go to you, then I'm going to go to John. We're going to play one more clip, then we're getting out of here.
Yeah, you know, I'm reminded, and I mentioned this before we went on the air. I'm reminded of the days when I was over at Star Trek Voyager, in particular, in the story department. You know, they'd have all the writers get together, and they would have a story idea, and then what they would do is it was called a beat session, where I would be up at the board, and the writers would all be breaking down that outline into a full show. And then I would write down what each act and each scene was in different colors. And then at the end of the meeting, that would be the sort of the bare bones outline for that episode. And then it would get assigned to a writer. I would dictate it to a secretary, and then that would get assigned to one of the staff writers and so on. And we would go through these things where we would say, okay, is that believable? Right. And I thought of it when I saw all of us together there. I was like, this is like one of those story session meetings where we're talking about an outline that was sent to us. And we're saying, okay, if somebody were to do that, could we get from point this to point this with believability? Right, and it goes the same way with analysis, you know, as you look at these things. And unfortunately, you know, with a lack of information, as you say, you try to give deference to people, and you ask for some sort of deference back. Right. And that's the problem that I think, I'll just say this. When Trump attacks the messenger, rather than openly saying, well, you know, I understand, like, rather than having a conversation with her, right, he confronts her and doesn't attack the message. No, he attacks the messenger. Right. And that doesn't serve him either. You know, it doesn't help him.
It's a deflection, and everybody's a piece of filth that says anything against him. What word spell? You're absolutely right. It says, in all fairness, Brittany was talking about proof, not evidence. And I said evidence this time. I meant proof. We need proof. We also need evidence to back up that proof. And what some people consider hardcore evidence as proof is just not. It is circumstantial evidence. There is a difference. I'm glad you brought that up, because the way we phrase things are important. Circumstantial evidence is not enough to prove something. Right. And I kept saying evidence this time. You erase that and proof. We need proof. We absolutely do. And people were telling me that we did not need proof, which is just as bad as people telling me we didn't need evidence, to be honest with you. But no, we don't need proof. What do we need proof of? We don't need any proof. You know, and we absolutely do. We absolutely need proof. We need to prove things out. It's part of the scientific process. Prove it. Right. So thank you very much for correcting me there, and I appreciate you coming. And I don't think I've ever seen you before, so I appreciate you coming and listening over here. I appreciate it, man. What word spell? Thank you so much. Yeah, we need proof. 100%, 100%. And I'm not willing to compromise on that. That's a freaking kindergarten level conversation. When I don't care if I'm being disrespectful. I don't mean to be, but damn it, man. You're telling me I don't need proof for something? Come on. And then where does it stop? It's selective proof. Fuck out of here. It doesn't make sense to me. Yes, we need proof. We need proof. Otherwise, you're going to end up in jail when somebody accuses you of something. Oh, we don't need proof that this person stole whatever he stole. We don't need proof. Send him to jail. You know, I said that, we had if we don't need proof, I got a 4-leaf clover and I got a unicorn in my backyard. And they were like, oh, that's disingenuous. I'm like, how is it disingenuous? You said I don't need proof. So why do I need to prove that I have a 4-leaf clover in my pocket? Because if you don't need proof for one thing, you don't need it for anything. We use the slippery slope analogy a lot here in the alt media. Apply the same logic to it. It's a very slippery slope when we said, yo, I don't need evidence. I don't need proof. And this is why people don't believe their own reality anymore here in this bubble. Everything is fake. Everything is fake. Some things are, but some things are real. you know, and then what do we accept as proof? So all of that is a thing. There was another comment I wanted to address. I think I lost it, man. Somebody said we did great, that they were watching. Oh, it's Karen. What's up, Karen? I've seen you before and I appreciate you, man. Karen said that she was tuning in and she said we all did great and we were arguing about semantics. Absolutely. I think in a lot of ways we were arguing about different things, but they called it a false flag. And I'm like, can you prove that it was a false flag? I'm like, no, you can't. And then they started calling into question what a false flag was. So I had to define what a false flag was. And then they were like, well, that's not what we meant. We meant a false flag in the sense of an umbrella term, and lies fits in a false flag. I'm like, those are two different things. There are lies involved in a false flag, but lies and a false flag are two different things, right? And we need to make those distinctions. Go over there and listen to Weezy. It was a dope conversation, Weezy and Steve Poikonen and myself in the latest episode. We all got triggered. I got to tell you, I got triggered. You know, and I was just like, what the hell, you know? But those are my friends, and we're cool. We're all cool. It was just we have very different opinions on things. All right. John, let's go. And then I'm going to play one more clip and then we're out of here. We need to, when it's my fault, I need more time. I just don't have the time. And I've been really a bad time manager as of late, but I want to sit down and have a real, not that this wasn't a real show, but I mean, with time and it mapped out all the things that I wanted to cover. I want to hit them and I want to cover them. So I want to invite both of you gentlemen back at some point. I can't promise that I'll have my shit together by next week, but if I do, I'll be in contact with both of you. John Brisson, what's up?
Yeah, I was just saying about the whole Pepe the Frog picture on X. The most simple explanation, the government has it back into X, and they posted it and made it seem like it was posted then, and it's part of a psychological operation.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if you're a conspiracy theorist, it's Q proofs, it's time travel, which also goes back to Trump and Barron Trump and Q. Like, if you want to believe all that, then go right ahead. But the most obvious example is there's a back end X,
right.
And they can do whatever they want.
Well, they're saying that that's pretty hard. Well, it would have to been Elon Musk to have done it.
Yeah, right? You don't think Elon Musk would not have done something like that?
You're right. I can't argue that.
Or it might be a conspiracist, huh? So I got no proof, but informed speculation. It seems like that's the most. I mean, what's more informed speculation? Time travel or a back end on X?
Right.
To push a literal Q psychological operation and to push forth further the missing scientists.
Oh, right. Another conspiracy theory that's been around for 20 years that's being rehashed now is as if it's something new.
Greatest hits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you play the last clip that I sent?
I have the same clip. I don't have what you sent me. I don't have the same thing.
Okay, then play the one you want to. It's fine. It was just.
No, it's the same thing. I have the same thing.
Okay, then just go ahead and play
47. All right, let me play Dana White. I want to play his stupid ass.
Oh man,
did you see this? Did you guys see?
Yeah, that was so weird, man. What a
and Hegseth did the same shit. You know, like
stupid.
Standing up. Like I don't know what these people have to prove, these fake alpha males, man. But let me play this real quick. Listen to this fool talk.
Tables getting flipped over, guys running in with guns, and they were screaming, "Get down!" I didn't get down. It was fucking awesome. I literally took every minute of it in, and it was a pretty crazy, unique experience.
So you were on the aisle. What exactly did you see?
We were sitting right in front of the table.
Okay.
The rest of it doesn't really matter. He's just like, well, I don't know what he said, but I'm not trying to address it right now. He said that, I stood there. It was freaking awesome. And he would have got shot in the head. How would that have gone? These people are freaking crazy, Guard. Who says something like this? Go ahead, buddy.
I just keep thinking, what if that had happened at like his kid's school? Would he be saying the same thing?
Right.
What a dumb, stupid thing to say. If you can't say something at least reasonably thoughtful, shut up.
Right.
Man.
Right.
What a dumb thing. And Hegseth with his, I guess you should expect it from people associated with this criminal element, but it's really disgraceful, and it's just ridiculous. And again, it indicates to me that these people are so much more interested in show than reality. I mean, if all of this is borne out, and that man really wanted to take people's lives, then what will White be thinking later about his I don't know, braggadocio about, wow, it was awesome. It's like, dude, seriously? Really? No. It just the moral fibers in my body again are just electrified against this. It's just disgusting.
Dana White's not a good dude. I mean, Dana White's not a good dude. What am I supposed to say? Like, RFK Jr. was a manly man during it all, and Stephen Miller was shielding his pregnant wife or was standing behind her. Take your pick, choose your own adventure. I mean, what am I supposed to say?
All right. So we'll come back and do this again. Thank you for everybody that is stuck around. Let me see. And Karen says we were all correct. I don't think we were all correct. I don't. You can't. But I appreciate you, Karen. I really do. I appreciate it, man. But when you say we don't need proof, you're automatically not correct. Automatically, this is basic. It's basic thugonomics, like John Cena would say. Am I wrong here? And if I'm wrong, guys, feel free to tell me. Both of you, be as transparent as possible.
No, I mean, I think we should all try to get proof if all possible. There's nothing wrong with informed speculation or using intuition to try to guess, but to come to a complete conclusion 100%, I think that in many cases we cannot, because we lack the proof necessary to be able to believe that. I mean, do I believe that Butler was staged? Yeah, but I can't prove it beyond 100%.
There you go. And that's all I was asking for. That's all I was asking for. Because I said, we can't prove it. I even lent credence to it. I was like, yeah, there's a lot of things that I agree with you guys on this, but we can't prove it. End of the world. That's what sparked off everything. We need to be able to prove things. We need to be able to prove things. Bottom line. I mean, I don't know how I get owned in a debate when the other side is just telling me that proof doesn't matter. I think that automatically dismisses the debate. Listen, I love Weezy. I want to have him on as many times as possible and get to a place where he is also evidence-based rather than feelings-based, rather than hunch-based, rather than these people are pieces of crap, therefore they're always going to be pieces of crap, and I don't need any type of proof to prove my point. Right? I'd like to.
But in all fairness, Weezy does change his opinion on things.
He does. He does.
Fair,
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. I mean, he still has a long way to go, in my opinion. And I know you don't, John. I know. I know. I don't know how to phrase this. All right, but we all have a long way to go. Yes. But we're in different places. I'm not there anymore. I don't know if I ever was fully, but I am just not in that realm anymore. I don't think you are either. We differ on Christian-based stuff, on religion-based stuff, you and I. But we know the importance of proof, especially you as that you give medical advice. You need to prove out what it is that you're saying, dude. You know the importance.
I don't give medical advice. I just give suggestions.
Right, medical suggestions. But you need to prove out what you're saying regardless.
I'm also an investigative journalist. I try my best to find, again, there's nothing wrong with intuition and speculation. It's just trying to state as such and what is opinion and what is fact, what is proof and what is evidence. You know, I'm not saying I'm perfect at that stuff by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm trying to be better.
Guard, what do you think? And feel free to tell me if I'm wrong. Go ahead.
No, I 100% concur with you guys. Informed speculation is one thing, and that's oftentimes all you can do.
Right.
And then you can rely on some people to be able to pull in more research and say, okay, that tends to get me thinking on this side. Oh, now I've got the proof, and it takes a lot of time. And sometimes
it does, man.
Yeah. And, the politicians move so quickly to take advantage of these sorts of things that I think oftentimes people just sentimentally will say, I know the bad guy here. I know this guy here, and we've got to stop this. We got to stop this. This is why they're doing that. This is why they're doing that. And it may be, but it's difficult because they've got us in a corral and we're their cattle. And,
and that's what we need to realize. That's exactly what we haven't broken out of this. We're still their cattle.
Yeah.
We're still being led around by a freaking carrot. I don't think I'm better than you, Weezy. Not at all, man. Trust me, bro. I listened to Alex Jones for 15 years, bro. And 10 of those years, I thought he was right, bro. What does that say about me? You think that I'm proud of that makes me feel good? No. What does that say about me? I have to wrestle with that. Trust me, I don't think that I'm better than you. Never. And I also realize, and this is what's hard, I also realize that you have to come to your own realizations on all of this, because nothing that I am going to say or anybody else is going to say is going to change things. You have to come to your own realization on this. And it's hard because I'm like, no, look at what I'm telling you. Look over here, because I still have that mentality that I can maybe change things. And I know I can't. I know I can't with the minds of people to get them to see what the way I'm seeing it. So now I'm just saying what I'm saying, and people that want to listen, I'm grateful that they're here, and if you want to listen to me and I had a really big turn of where I used to be, I get that. You want to listen to what I'm talking about now? Great. If you don't, I totally understand, but we need to at least get to a point where we agree that proof is necessary. And then we don't agree with the people that are giving the proof. And so we're in a never-ending cycle of nothing, right? And we can't agree on anything.
I'll say this. We should try to always strive for getting the proof and trying to figure out exactly what happened, even if that's impossible.
Right. And it's not impossible.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes we'll never know.
It is for some things, right? I think in a religious,
not for everything, but for some things. I would say the opposite. Religious, we can know the objective truth, but you and I would disagree on that. But I'm saying we should all at least, like, for example, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around to hear it, does it fall? It still falls. Just because no one's there to witness it doesn't mean it didn't happen. So we should strive to get as much evidence as we can. And we also need to realize that when it comes to the events of what happens, even in a jury-based trial, it's beyond a reasonable doubt, but not 100%.
Right.
You're never going to get there.
Right.
Either, Billy. To that point in the inverse. So
could you repeat again? I wasn't paying attention. I was reading the chat.
We're never going to get 100%. We're never going to have 100% proof. In court, there are, but in court, it's beyond a reasonable doubt.
Exactly. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. That is a high level.
It is.
It is a high level. And that's where we need to get. And I even mentioned it on the show. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what I mean is proof. right? And then people take it as absolute, 100%, whatever, beyond a reasonable doubt, bro. And a lot of people here in the alternative media aren't putting in the work to get there. I think Steve got offended when I said it because he was like, oh, I put in a lot of work. I'm like, yeah, you put in a lot of work on your show, but you're not an investigative journalist, bro. It's just, I don't think that's me being offensive. That's me stating the truth. I am not an investigative journalist either. I am not, right? John Brissom has done some.
I am, for what it's worth.
Guard Goldsmith has done some. I am not that. I know where I am.
He's done some on Abraham Lincoln, to be fair.
I don't agree. I think Weezy has listened to a lot of other people's research. You knock David Icke. You knock David Icke a lot. Let's use the same energy, because I can make the same arguments about David Icke.
Oh, Weezy.
And you say he's a regurgitator.
Well, hold on, but Weezy actually went to interview Abraham Lincoln historians, though.
So David Icke went to interview Credo Matsua in Africa. David Icke went to Peru to interview people there, and he went to Machu Picchu. I'm just saying we can go all day long, you know. There's a high standard, and people think they're more than what they are here in the alt media. I'm not just talking about you, Weezy. All right. I never called myself a journalist. I never called myself an investigative, whatever the fuck, reporter, ever. Okay. We need to get to a point where it's beyond a reasonable doubt. I'll start saying that, even though that's what I said, but I say proof, and people can conflate that in any way. Beyond a reasonable doubt. And we haven't done that, and we don't do it, and we can't do it, but we speak about it as if we have. And that's the problem. 100%. And I'm willing to put that against anybody. And I know it hurts people's feelings, because we've been caught up in this emotional fifth generation warfare for quite some time. I know it hurts people's feelings, and it's hard to come to terms with it. And I also understand that nothing that I'm saying is going to change Weezy's mind or anybody else in the chat that is in opposition to me. Everybody else has to come with it at their own pace and their own come to Jesus moment. I had several of mine, and nobody can change my mind until I change my mind. So that's the way it works here. Just saying. We try to be as evidence-based as possible, and that's why I have Guard on as often as I can. You know, and when Guard is wrong about something, I'll tell him. I'm like, hey, I think you're wrong about this, and we'll go back and forth. Guard and I have never had an argument once.
No.
We just go back and forth, and I'm like, here's what I think about this, and Guard is like, well, here's what I think about this. Guard has taught me so much about the Constitution, you know, and I listen to Guard stuff all the time, you know, and that's why I listen to Guard, because I'm like, you know what? It's evidence-based. He tries. Maybe not always, right? We always get, all of us are going to get something wrong all the time, but he's trying to do it the right way. And a lot of the times I subscribe to what he's saying. David Knight was another one. I disagree wildly with a lot of David Knight stuff now, but he at least had integrity, in my opinion. You know, there was integrity there, and he tried to keep it as facts-based as possible, where he kicked Steve Puchinik the hell out of his office, right, or out of his show. That takes. Weezy is also a very honest person. Weezy's not lying. He believes everything he says. You know, so I listen to Weezy also. He's not lying. You know, but I like to stick to people that are evidence-based. So I listen to Guard, man. I listen to Guard. I listen to Angry Tiger. You know, Knights of the Storm. They tried hard to be evidence-based. Everybody's trying to walk out of this in some manner, and I'm here for it. Thank you for everybody that's tuned in. Thank you for everybody that continues to listen. I'm going to revamp the infinitefringe.podbeam.com. I know I say that all the time, but I'm really going to do it. I really just don't have time to do a damn thing anymore, and I'm a very, very poor time manager. Guard Goldsmith, thoughts on all of this, and then we can get out of here.
Yeah, you know, you think about beyond a reasonable doubt and how, you know, within common law, if we were to go back to British common law, and we had small areas of political groupings, and you could get away rapidly rather than these large areas of political control that, you know, F.A. Hayek, the economist, pretty much said, you know, the larger the area of control, the more people are going to be hit by the central decisions, the less information the central decision makers are going to have about the things that happen in the small areas. And of course, you get the feedback loop of the special interests coming in to feed it. And, you know, that's what we're up against. And it's difficult because there's so many new issues that are brought up that, you know, while you're trying to figure out this new proposal and, you know, whose bread is being buttered with that, you get all this other argumentation and all this crazy stuff that pops up. And it's a strange world to be at the same time historically interested in trying to be honest with what one has learned through the years and so on, and then look at the contemporary stories to say, okay, what don't I know right now, and how can I be fair on that? And like I often say, you know, I'm never going to win a political argument, but the least I can do is ask people what they think, and, you know, put forward what I know. And I know that there are certain things that I do know that are indisputable when it comes to, you know, what I know about the Constitution and what the founders wrote and what they said. You know, I won't lose a debate on those things, but I won't win politically. I'm not gonna change policy in any way. And so you enter this sort of realm of, is it just futile? And I don't think it's futile. I think being able to talk to people like you guys at this time and trying to decipher what is the truth with honest guys that I like, that's all I can ask for, you know, to me. That's the key, you know, and as long as I'm treating people fairly, that's cool. And so we'll discover more, and we'll hear from people who are going to be arguing with each other. And I just hope that I don't get angry at somebody when I hear something, you know what I mean? I'm just going to try to weigh it out and
it's
put
triggering.
forward.
Yeah. Sometimes it's triggering. It is what it is. Tell the people where they can find you, Guard Goldsmith. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah. I'll be in the state penitentiary pretty soon. So it'll be a good time. But Monday through Friday, 6 p.m., Liberty Conspiracy Live at Rumble and on X. And then I'm starting to post videos on YouTube on the Liberty Conspiracy channel on YouTube. They don't get a lot of views over there because we were highly suppressed over there. So Rumble, 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And then my Substack, it's the Gardner Goldsmith Substack. And I also have, and we do daily news over there for the paid subscribers. So I go into a lot of the stuff I did for MRC TV, but I also take my entertainment background. So for something light, we'll talk about TV shows or talk about writers and things like that. So that's at a channel called Former Star Trek Writing Fellow. And you can find that on YouTube and Rumble. And my X is at Guard Goldsmith, Gard Goldsmith.
Fantastic, brother. John Brissom, tell the people they can find you, bro.
You can find me. We've read the documents on YouTube.
That's it. That's all you got. You don't got nothing else?
That's all I got.
All right. Karen Peterson, thank you so much for tuning in. Knights of the Storm, that's Jason Barker. What's up? Ashley, thank you so much. Wheezy, thank you, brother. I don't think my burden is that. Whatever. Think what you will. It's not my intention. I just know how wrong I've been in the past. That's it. Who else is here, man? I saw Thomas Clayton. What's up, buddy? How are you? Thank you for tuning in all the time whenever I do something, man. I appreciate you. Everybody over on Rumble. Dustin Helms, what's up, my guy? Good to see you. How are you? Do Not Obey. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Lou, what's up, Lou? Lou G for Liberty. What's going on? How are you? And everybody else, man, whom I may have missed along the way. Thank you, everybody. What word spell? I just saw that is there too. So everybody that I may have missed, I appreciate you. Tune into Guard during the week. Tune into John whenever he does something, and maybe I'll be back next week. I have no idea. I got to get my shit together. Everybody be good. Hang out, guys, for a second. Take it easy now. Bye-bye.